Mom said life would be better without me. Her words didn't come from anger, they came from certainty, like she'd just solved a math problem. She slid a sheet of paper across the table, her manicured nail tapping the bottom line. Sign it, Natalie. You'll stop pretending to be their mother. From now on, you're just their sister. I looked at her, wondering if she remembered the nights I cooked dinner while she was out, or the times I signed school forms because she forgot. Since I was 10, I'd been holding our family together with duct tape and desperation. So I smiled, picked up the pen, and signed. If you want me to be just a sister, I said, then that's exactly what you'll get. 4 days later, the lights went out, my sister cried herself to sleep, and CPS knocked on our front door. My name is Natalie Ross, and I was never supposed to be anyone's mother. But somewhere between my mom's 4th boyfriend and my brother's 3rd failed math test, that's exactly who I became. Mom Linda Ross wasn't cruel, not in the way people imagine. She just didn't care enough to be consistent. One week she'd buy groceries, the next she'd forget the rent. Some nights she'd tuck us in, others she'd stumble home smelling like tequila and strangers. When she called me downstairs that morning, I already knew something was wrong. She was sitting at the kitchen table with her coffee, wearing my old college hoodie, and a look of triumph. "You've been acting like you run this house," she said, sliding her iPad toward me. "That stops today." On the screen was a digital document, something she clearly spent time crafting. The title at the top read, Household Responsibility Agreement. "What is this?" I asked. "It's simple," she said. "You've been treating your brother and sister like they're your kids. It's not healthy. From now on, you'll stick to sister duties only. No more bossing them around." Her tone was light, but her eyes were cold. "So, you want me to stop cooking for them? Stop paying the bills you forget? Stop signing their permission slips because you never check your emails?" She smirked. "Exactly. I'll handle it. You just focus on being a normal daughter for once." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd. A part of me wanted to argue, to yell that she couldn't even remember Evan's birthday without Facebook reminding her. But another part of me, the exhausted, invisible part, wanted to see what would happen if I really did stop. "Fine," I said, picking up the pen from the counter. "You want me to be just a sister? You've got it." Her grin widened as I signed at the bottom. The sound of the pen scratching across the paper felt heavier than it should have. "See?" she said, standing up. "This is going to be good for everyone. No more dictatorship." Dictatorship. That's what she called me, the girl who stayed up late paying bills so the heat wouldn't shut off. The girl who cleaned up after her hangovers and made sure her children didn't starve. That night, I sat in my room staring at the ceiling, replaying her words. Maybe this was it. Maybe I'd finally be free. But, deep down, a small, stubborn voice whispered what I didn't want to admit. Without me, everything would fall apart. And maybe that was the point. By the next morning, Mom was humming in the kitchen, proud of her new authority. Evan was still asleep past his alarm. Sophie couldn't find her uniform, and I just watched. For the first time in years, I didn't lift a finger. I let the world burn quietly. And the fire spread faster than any of us expected. The next morning was the first peaceful one I'd had in years. No alarm at 6 a.m., no shouting about missing homework, no rush to make breakfast before the bus came. The house was strangely silent until it wasn't. From downstairs, Mom's voice cracked like thunder. "Evan! Sophie! Get up already! You're going to be late!" I stretched, rolled over, and smiled into my pillow. Usually, I'd be the one running around with toast in one hand and a hairbrush in the other. But today, I was just the sister. By the time I wandered downstairs, Mom was pacing the kitchen, wearing her robe inside out and holding her phone like a grenade. The coffee pot overflowed, dripping onto the counter. "Natalie, can you—" she started, then caught herself. "No," I said sweetly, pouring my own cup. "Remember, boundaries." She shot me a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "Evan, where are your clothes?" "They're all dirty," he yelled back from upstairs. "Then wear something else. Everything smells. Ask your sister to wash them." I raised my cup like a toast. "Sorry, Mom. Contract says I'm off laundry duty." Her jaw twitched. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" I shrugged. "I'm following orders." Sophie stumbled into the kitchen. Her hair, a bird's nest, her eyes half open. She was still wearing yesterday's jeans. Mom, can we get breakfast? You're old enough to make it yourself, Mom snapped, slamming the fridge door. The fridge, of course, was nearly empty. A carton of expired milk, half a jar of pickles, and something that used to be lettuce. I bit back a laugh. Evan stomped down the stairs, muttering curses, and grabbed a granola bar from the counter. We're out of those too, I warned. Then go shopping, he barked. No can do, little brother. That's Mom's job now. The look on Mom's face was priceless. Half fury, half panic. You're being dramatic, Natalie. It's one morning. Sure, I said, sipping my coffee. Let's see how 1 week goes. By the time the bus pulled away, Evan had missed his first class, Sophie had left her flute at home, and Mom was already late for work. She stormed out without makeup, shouting, "This is fine. Everything's fine." The door slammed so hard that a picture frame fell off the wall. That night, when she got home, her blouse was stained with coffee and exhaustion. She didn't say a word as she kicked off her heels and collapsed onto the couch. I sat beside her, calm, almost amused. "Rough day?" I asked. "You think this is funny?" "A little," I admitted. "You said life would be better without me. I'm just watching it get better." Her glare could have burned holes through steel, but she didn't reply. She just turned away, muttering under her breath. And as the house went dark that night, I smiled to myself, because deep down, she was starting to realize the truth. Without me, she wasn't a mother. She was just a woman trying and failing to pretend she knew how. By Wednesday, the cracks were wide enough for everyone to see. The house smelled like sour laundry and burned toast. Dishes towered in the sink. The trash can overflowed. Mom kept telling herself it was just a messy week, but I could see the panic in her eyes, the same kind that used to flash when rent was due and she couldn't remember if she'd paid it. Evan stomped into the kitchen, holding up a crumpled gym shirt like a dead animal. "This is disgusting," he said. "Can you at least wash my clothes? Please?" I didn't even look up from my phone. "Sounds like mothering," I said. "Ask Mom." He clenched his jaw. "You're being impossible." "No," I said quietly. "I'm following the rules." When Mom came home that evening, she looked like she'd gone 12 rounds with life. Her lipstick was smeared, and her blouse had a coffee stain the shape of Texas. "Evan skipped class today," she announced, tossing her purse on the floor. "The school called me at work." "Maybe he overslept," I said, stirring my tea. "That happens when no one sets his alarm." "Don't you dare start." "I'm not starting anything," I said. "You did. The minute you told me to stop parenting." Her eyes narrowed. "You know what? You're acting petty." "Petty?" I stood up, heat rising in my chest. "You told me I wasn't needed. I'm just letting you prove it." She slammed her palm on the counter. "I am their mother." "Then act like it," I shouted. The silence that followed was deafening. Sophie appeared in the doorway, eyes red from crying. "Mom," she said softly. "I'm hungry. There's no food." Mom's shoulders sagged. "We'll order something tomorrow, okay?" "Tomorrow?" Sophie whispered. "You said that yesterday." I turned away, because the sight of her broke something in me. By Thursday morning, the electricity shut off. The fridge had died sometime in the night, and the milk smelled like poison. Mom sat at the table in her work clothes, phone pressed to her ear, voice trembling. "Please, just give me a few more days," she begged the utility company. "I didn't know the bill was due. My daughter used to handle that stuff." When she hung up, her hands were shaking. I stepped into the kitchen doorway, watching her crumble under the weight she'd thrown onto me for years. "Hey, Mom?" I said softly. She looked up, eyes glassy. "What?" "This is what better without me looks like." The words hit her harder than I expected. She stared at me, lips parted, but no sound came out. Just then, someone knocked on the door, firm, official. Through the window, I saw 2 women and a man standing outside, clipboards in hand. "Linda Ross?" one of them called. "We're with Child Protective Services." Mom's face drained of color. And for the first time in my life, she didn't have anyone left to blame. The knock echoed through the house like a verdict. Mom froze halfway to the door, her hand trembling on the handle. I could see the reflection of her panic in the window. Wide eyes, fake confidence, mascara smudged from exhaustion. When she opened it, a woman in a dark blazer smiled politely. "Mrs. Ross? I'm Mrs. Carter, with Child Protective Services. We've received multiple reports from your children's school." And behind her stood two others, one holding a clipboard, the other already glancing past the doorway like she was cataloging damage. "Reports?" Mom laughed nervously. "There must be some mistake. We'd like to take a look around, ma'am. Just routine." Routine. Nothing about the way they stepped inside felt routine. The moment Mrs. Carter crossed the threshold, the smell hit her: the sour milk, unwashed laundry, the garbage spilling over the bin. Her smile vanished. "Is this typical for your household, Mrs. Ross?" Mom's voice cracked. "It's just been a rough week." I leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. "We had a family restructuring," I said evenly. "I'm not allowed to act as their mother anymore." Mrs. Carter turned toward me. "Excuse me?" I pulled up the photo on my phone, the signed agreement, Mom's digital signature glowing under the kitchen light. "She made me sign this 4 days ago." The social worker took the phone, reading silently. Her brows furrowed deeper with each line. "She made you sign this? Said life would be better without me," I replied. "So I stopped helping." Mrs. Carter's gaze flicked toward Mom. "Is this accurate?" Mom stammered. "She's twisting everything. She acts like I can't handle my own house." Before the worker could respond, Evan walked in wearing his sweat-stained gym uniform from Monday. Sophie trailed behind him, still in pajamas, clutching an empty cereal box. Mrs. Carter blinked. "Are those the same clothes you wore to school yesterday?" Evan shrugged. "Probably." "And when was the last time you ate a full meal?" "I don't know. A few days?" The room went still. Mrs. Carter's voice softened, but her words cut through the air. "Mrs. Ross, I'll need to speak with each of your children privately." Mom tried to step forward. "That's unnecessary. Everything's fine." "Privately, ma'am," the second worker repeated firmly. They guided Sophie into the living room first. Through the cracked door, I heard her voice tremble. "I don't know how to cook. Natalie used to do it." "And your mom?" "She's tired a lot." When they called for me, I sat at the table opposite Mrs. Carter. "You've been the primary caregiver for a while, haven't you?" she asked. "Since I was 10, I said. "She stopped being a mom, so I filled in." Mrs. Carter exhaled slowly, typing on her tablet. "And what do you do now?" "Nothing," I said, meeting her eyes. "Exactly what she told me to do." Somewhere behind us, Mom's voice rose angry, frantic, cornered. The sound of denial. And for the first time, I wasn't the one cleaning up her mess. They started with me. Mrs. Carter led me to the dining table, the only clean surface left in the house, because it was where I used to do the bills. She placed her tablet in front of her and gave a small, almost kind smile. "All right, Natalie. I just need to understand the situation clearly. Tell me what you usually handle around here." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Everything?" I said. "Everything?" she repeated. "I wake them up, cook breakfast, pack lunches, do laundry, pay bills online, schedule appointments, help with homework. I even signed permission slips, because Mom always forgot." Her fingers stopped tapping. "How long have you been doing this?" "Since I was 10. "And?" She blinked, stunned. 10 years old? I nodded. She said I was mature for my age. Mrs. Carter typed for a long time before looking back at me. "And she made you sign that agreement?" "Yes. She told me I was making everything about myself, that I should stop pretending to be the parent." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You understand that what she did was not only inappropriate, it's neglect." I nodded again, though hearing it said out loud made my stomach twist. Through the door, I could hear muffled voices, Sophie's soft crying, Evan's defensive tone, Mom's raised voice, then the sound of chairs scraping as they switched rooms. When I came out, Sophie was sitting on the couch with red eyes, twisting a loose thread on her sleeve. Mrs. Carter crouched in front of her. "Sweetheart, can you tell me how things have been this week?" "I'm hungry all the time," Sophie said, her voice breaking. "There's no food except cereal, but we ran out of milk." "And who usually makes your meals?" "Natalie. But Mom said she's not allowed to anymore." Mrs. Carter glanced toward me, then back at Sophie. "It's okay, honey. You're doing great." Next came Evan. He slouched into the chair like he couldn't care less. "So, Evan?" the second worker said. "What's going on at home?" "Nothing. Everyone's overreacting. Have you eaten properly this week?" "Cereal, chips, whatever's around. Do you have clean clothes?" "No, but that's not my fault. Nobody showed me how to do laundry." His voice rose when they asked about school. "I missed one test, okay? Big deal. It's not like Mom wakes me up or knows what classes I have." From the hallway, I saw Mrs. Carter exchange a look with her colleague, a silent conversation only professionals have when they've already decided something. Finally, they spoke to Mom. I stayed near the stairs, out of sight but close enough to hear every word. "Mrs. Ross, can you tell me about your children's routines?" "Of course," Mom said, her voice brittle. "We're a normal family. I just let Natalie take too much control." "What time do your kids start school?" A long pause. "Around 8? Which teachers have contacted you recently?" I don't remember their names." "What about Sophie's allergies? Or Evan's need for glasses?" More silence. Mrs. Carter sighed softly. "Mrs. Ross, whether or not Natalie was helping, you are still legally responsible for their care. And right now, that care is inadequate." I expected Mom to explode, to shout or deny everything, but instead she whispered something I'd never heard from her before. I didn't think it would fall apart so fast. The pity that flickered in Mrs. Carter's eyes was brief. She stood and called to the others, "Document everything." And in that moment, I knew it was over. Our family had finally collapsed, not because I left, but because the truth had nowhere left to hide. By the time the interviews ended, the sky outside had turned an iron gray, heavy with the threat of rain. The house was quiet, too quiet, except for the clicking sound of Mrs. Carter's pen against her clipboard. Mom sat hunched on the couch, one hand tangled in her hair, mascara streaking her cheeks. Evan stood near the stairs with his arms crossed, looking both angry and terrified. Sophie curled into herself beside me, clutching her old teddy bear. Then Mrs. Carter spoke. Her tone was calm but final, the voice of someone who'd done this too many times before. "Based on our observations and your family's current living conditions, we'll be placing both minors in emergency protective custody." Mom's head snapped up. "What? No! You can't take them. I can fix this, I just need a little more time." Mrs. Carter shook her head. "We've given you time, Mrs. Ross. These children are living without proper supervision, nutrition, or care. They need stability." "They have stability," Mom shouted, gesturing wildly at me. "Natalie helps." "She's an adult," Mrs. Carter interrupted. "And she's no longer responsible for your parental duties." That line hit harder than anything else. It wasn't anger, it was truth, delivered like a gavel strike. Mom turned to me, desperation flashing in her eyes. "Natalie, say something. Tell them it's fine. Tell them you'll help until I get back on my feet." I felt my throat tighten, but I forced my voice steady. "No, Mom. You made me sign an agreement, remember? You said life would be better without me. I'm just doing what you asked." Her face went pale, as if I'd slapped her. "You don't mean that," but I did. Every word of it. When the officers started gathering Evan and Sophie's things, the sound of zippers and drawers opening filled the air. Sophie began to cry, reaching out for me. "Natalie, don't let them take us. Please." My heart broke, but I couldn't move. I knew that if I did, if I took one step toward her, I'd undo everything. Mrs. Carter knelt beside her, speaking softly. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're not in trouble. We're just going to make sure you're safe." Evan's voice cracked for the first time. "You can't just separate us. We're a family." "A family," Mrs. Carter said gently, "is supposed to take care of each other." The words lingered in the room long after she said them. When they led my siblings out to the waiting SUV, Sophie looked back through the window, her hand pressed against the glass. Evan stared straight ahead, jaw tight, pretending not to cry. Mom followed them out, sobbing uncontrollably, shouting their names into the rain. "Please, don't take them. I can do better." Her voice cracked into silence as the car doors closed. The SUV pulled away, red taillights glowing like two fading embers. I stood in the doorway, soaked from the drizzle, watching until the car disappeared down the street. Mom collapsed on the porch, screaming into her hands. For years, I'd cleaned up her messes, her broken relationships, her empty bottles, her forgotten bills. But this time, I didn't move. When Mrs. Carter approached me, she placed a card in my palm. "If you ever need support or just someone to talk to, call this number." I nodded, staring at the soggy ink of her name. Behind us, Mom whispered through her tears, "You've ruined everything." I looked at her, the woman who'd turned me into a mother long before I was ready, and said quietly, "No, Mom, you did that all by yourself." Then I closed the door and let the sound of her sobs fade into the rain. The next morning, the house was silent. No clattering dishes, no slammed doors, no shouting. The stillness was deafening. I walked past the empty bedrooms, Sophie's bed unmade. Evan's headphones tangled on the floor, and for the first time, the space felt hollow, not just quiet. Mom hadn't left her room all night. When she finally emerged, her eyes were swollen, her mascara smudged. She looked like someone who'd lost a war. "They took my babies," she whispered. "They're not babies anymore," I said. "They're victims of your choices." She flinched like I'd hit her. "You think you're so perfect?" "No, Mom," I said. "Just the only one who grew up." She screamed, really screamed, and threw her coffee mug at the wall. It shattered behind me, but I didn't even flinch. I packed a bag that afternoon and walked out. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay in a house that smelled like regret and denial. My friend Haley's family took me in without questions. Her mom made me pancakes the next morning, the first real breakfast I'd eaten in days, and didn't pry. When she asked about my family, I just said, "It's complicated." The calls started that night. 17 missed calls from Mom. 8 voicemails that alternated between screaming, sobbing, and begging. "Natalie, please. They say I have to take classes. I don't know what to do. You have to tell them you'll help me. I can't do this alone. You destroyed our family." I turned off my phone. For once, I didn't feel guilt, just exhaustion. Over the next few weeks, CPS moved fast. Mom was ordered to attend parenting classes, individual therapy, and regular home inspections. I got a call from Mrs. Carter, who told me I wasn't required to attend any hearings but could submit a statement. I told her the truth, that I'd been raising my siblings since I was 10, that I wasn't a hero or a martyr, just tired. When the court hearing finally came, I didn't go, but I saw the outcome in a thin white envelope mailed to our old address. Inside was a printed summary of the ruling. Children to remain in protective custody. Mother to complete a 12-week parenting program. Supervised visitation pending progress review. I read it 3 times. Each word felt like both punishment and relief. Mom called again that night. This time I answered. Her voice was cracked and hoarse. "They fired me," she said, "because I missed too many shifts. Because of you." "No, Mom," I said quietly. "Because of you." There was a pause. Then, she hung up. Days bled into weeks. I worked extra hours at the bookstore, saved money, and started thinking about school again. Haley's mom showed me how to open a checking account, fill out FAFSA forms, and apply for scholarships. It was like learning an entirely new language, the language of independence. But some nights, when the house was dark and quiet, I'd think about Sophie's tear-streaked face pressed against the car window, about Evan's clenched jaw as he pretended not to cry, and guilt would creep in, soft but sharp, whispering that I'd abandoned them. Haley found me crying once and said something I'll never forget. "You didn't abandon them, Nat. You stopped letting them drown you." Maybe she was right. Maybe saving myself was the only way to ever save any of us. And yet, deep down, I couldn't shake one question. What if they never came back? 3 months later, I got the letter that changed everything. It wasn't from my mother or CPS, it was from the state university. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, with my name printed in perfect black ink, Natalie Ross. I tore it open with shaking hands. "We are pleased to inform you that you have been accepted, with a full scholarship based on your academic performance and personal essay." I read it 3 times, before I realized I was crying. For the first time in years, the tears weren't from pain. When I told Haley's mom, she hugged me like I was her own daughter. "You did this, Natalie," she said softly. "You finally get to live your life." But before I could leave for college, I had one more piece of unfinished business, my family. Mom had completed her parenting classes, therapy sessions, and 2 successful home inspections. CPS allowed her supervised visits with Evan and Sophie at first, then weekend visits after 3 months. She texted me one evening, "Dinner at Aunt Grace's on Saturday. The kids will be there. I'd like you to come." I stared at the screen for a long time before replying, "Okay." When I walked into my aunt's house that weekend, the smell of real food, not takeout, hit me first. Garlic bread, spaghetti, something baked. The table was set, the lights were warm, and for the first time, it looked like a home. Mom was in the kitchen wearing an apron, her hair tied back neatly. She looked nervous but sober, healthier somehow. "Hi, sweetheart," she said quietly. I nodded. "Hey, Mom." Sophie ran to me first, nearly tripping over herself. She threw her arms around my waist, tears already spilling. "I missed you so much," she whispered. When she stepped back, she held out a bracelet she'd made from colored beads. It spelled sister. "I made one for both of us," she said shyly. "So we match." I couldn't even speak, just hugged her again. Evan hung back near the counter, taller now, a little leaner. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "Hey yourself," I replied. "You look good." "Got a job," he said, almost proud. "Stocking shelves at the grocery store, saving up for a car." He grinned, rubbing the back of his neck. "Thanks for making us grow up, I guess." We laughed, really laughed, for the first time in years. After dinner, Mom asked if we could talk outside. We sat on the porch, the air cool and quiet, except for the crickets. She twisted her hands together. "Natalie, I don't know how to say this, so I'll just say it. I'm sorry. For all of it." Her voice trembled. "I forced you to be the mother when I wasn't ready to be one myself. I let you carry my responsibilities, and then blamed you for being tired. I took your childhood from you." Her eyes glistened, and for the first time, she didn't try to hide it. "I can't fix what I broke, but I'm learning how to be better, not just for them, but for me." I listened, but instead of anger, I felt something else. Peace. The kind that comes when you finally stop expecting someone to become who they used to be. "I know, Mom," I said softly. "And I forgive you, but I'm not coming back. I have to build my own life now." She nodded slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I know, that's what I want for you." As I left that night, Sophie ran after me, her bracelet jingling. "You'll visit, right?" "Of course," I said, smiling. "But this time, I'll just be your sister." She grinned. "Good. That's all I ever wanted." Months later, as I moved into my dorm, I looked around at my small, messy room, my room, and realized something simple and true. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't saving everyone else. It's walking away before you lose yourself trying. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't anyone's caretaker. I was just me, Natalie Ross, finally free.